From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, a candid conversation with the leader of the state's largest school system as she prepares for what's next, while her students learn to navigate entirely remote learning. And red alert to the union workers who say they are facing a dire financial emergency and need help now. Chris.
Topping our lineup, employers have the option to do a payroll tax deferral starting today. What this could mean for your paycheck and why a lot of employers may just be opting out. Affording housing is a struggle for so many, especially right now. How hotel rooms are becoming an option for some who have nowhere else to turn. Why not everybody's on board? And there are concerns about cameras as virtual learning continues on. Now, the risks you need to watch for with your family and what could be a better way to use this technology.
Well, we're rain-free in the Indianapolis right now, but we are not rain-free throughout all of central Indiana. Lafayette picked up a quick half-inch of rain as storms move through Tippecanoe County. That will be followed up by some additional rainfall. Notice what most of us don't have is rain. We've got the threatening-looking skies. There's a stronger storm just northeast of Lafayette now. This is moving toward Delphi, passing between Monticello and Lafayette. Here's your additional rainfall. Winds may gust to 40 miles per hour with some of these stronger cells. You'll get a quick burst of heavy rainfall, but these storms are on the move to the northeast at about 30 miles per hour. 81 in Peru temporarily. Look what happens when you get the rain. 72 in Lafayette. Temperature in Indy is at 79. All the metro area temperatures a little below average. Kind of kept the lid on temperatures today and the what we call instability in the atmosphere because of all the cloud cover. Tonight, between now and 11, showers, thunderstorms. A few of these may be strong, but I think it'll be an isolated stronger storm. 71, the overnight low. It stays warm all night.
The state's largest school system started the school year on August 17th with all of its students learning remotely. The next 31 days are critical for Indianapolis public schools. As WRTV's Rafael Sanchez reports, IPS and its superintendent will be using those days to decide how and where children will continue to learn after October 2nd.
And now we have our special guest.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
So I am so happy to see all of you and to be with you today.
Alicia Johnson wanted a first-hand look at remote learning. She came to a classroom at Meredith Nicholson Elementary School to teach a group of fourth graders for 45 minutes.
I love books and flowers and you too, Daddy.
Just the pace and the cadence of even something like reading a story, which is a pretty standard fare thing, is just different in that remote learning environment that I had not necessarily anticipated.
Johnson is leading a district that for the first time in its history has made it possible for each child to learn at home via an iPad or a Chromebook. The biggest priority is making sure kids stay on track.
From a technology standpoint, we can literally see kids who are logging in. We can see the length of the time they're logged in.
Johnson, the superintendent, on occasion sounds like a scientist.
When we made this decision, we were at like a 9% community spread. We're actually at a 6.9 if you consider unique cases, a 5.5 if you consider all tests.
She's made it her business to learn as much as possible about COVID-19 and the number of cases in Marion County, all to decide what will happen next with the schools.
I think our community has to keep going. Like, what's at stake is getting our kids back into school, and I think people understand that and seem to be taking that seriously.
Funding is a major concern. In August, she wrote an op-ed in the Indianapolis Star calling on the legislature not to cut dollars because kids are not physically in school.
If anyone saw the work happening, the ways in which we are both preparing to return, but also supporting our kids in a remote learning virtual environment, they would not suggest that we could do what we're doing now with 15% less funding.
Superintendent Johnson is living the realities of this new normal professionally as well as personally, especially with 3 of her own children in IPS in grades 5, 6, and 8, learning remotely. Working for you, Rafael Sanchez, WRTV.
If the situation improves, IPS hopes to begin a phase-in approach after October 2nd. For example, IPS may consider allowing kids to return via a mix of in-class and remote learning. Chris?
Small businesses in Kenosha, Wisconsin are facing uncertainty more than a week after the unrest following Jacob Blake's shooting. Usher Qureshi reports on the emotional toll that it's taking as well.
You ain't touching my dojo, that's a fact.
With her mask on, Taekwondo student Shelly Meyer live streamed on Facebook as she stood guard outside her dojo.
I'm getting real scared. I know I'm a military vet and everything, but I am outnumbered here. They came across the street and then attacked the school.
Please not the academy, I'm begging you, no.
Another group of protesters surrounded me and built a human shield.
Today, the school is still standing. Damages estimated in the tens of thousands.
She single-handedly geared up and, begged and pleaded in the face of people spitting and throwing stuff at her, protected our building.
But down the block that night, another business was not so lucky.
The cars are just blowing up one by one.
Like dominoes, the dealership's cars detonated one tank at a time. Witnesses say the flames started in one car and quickly engulfed the entire lot. The owners estimate the losses in the millions. The inferno, which burned for hours, left more than 100 cars completely destroyed.
There's explosion after explosion. Every time it explodes, it extends or grabs the next car.
For owners Sahel and Anmol Kendry, their American dream has turned nightmare.
We built this place up from ground up. That office right there, as you can see, it's in ashes right now. It's done. It's gone.
Charred scraps, shattered glass, and tires melted to the core are all that remain.
It's going to cost us more money to remove this car off the lot than it's worth itself.
In more than a week since the destruction, they're still not sure how they will recover financially. They're hoping for some assistance, though it's unclear whether their insurance will pay out at all.
We had nothing to do with it, and we're the one who's getting penalized for this.
It's a similar story up and down Kenosha's business district. Boarded up storefronts decorated with colorful messages of hope mask the damage and loss. Back at the Taekwondo Academy, their judo coin symbol has been painted outside the boarded up exterior, a symbol of resilience.
The more that we can rely on each other, as a community, we can stay protected.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Usher, thank you. Next in our lineup, employers have the option to do a payroll tax deferral starting today. We're going to talk about this, how this could really have an impact on you financially.
People who usually work behind the scenes are taking center stage, demanding action and help. We are hearing from the leadership of the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, Local 30. Their members work on the staging, lighting, and setup at the biggest venues in central Indiana, including Lucas Oil Stadium, White River State Park, the Convention Center, and the Palladium. Tonight, several of those buildings will be lit up red as a sign that workers believe they are facing an urgent financial emergency.
What we really need now is legislation that covers employers, legislation that extends the pandemic unemployment assistance at least through the end of the year. Most of our folks are going to be out of work until next March. What will people do with no income between now and next March?
So first and foremost, mask it up and let's kick this thing out and raise awareness for all these people who have lost their livelihoods, their careers.
We all need support. They need support from our legislators to continue to stay in business and to come out on the backside of this pandemic and begin to provide the entertainment and sporting events that we all love.
The buildings will be lit tonight from 9 through midnight. Chris.
As of today, companies can stop withholding payroll taxes for employees, but there's still some unknowns about the deferral. Now, if they opt in, the IRS hasn't specifically said if employees can then make their own decision.
The rough understanding is that it will likely be, it will have some optionality for employees to decide whether or not they would opt in, because if they did not, employers would have to decide on their behalf about a tax change that could affect them personally.
Now, those partaking in the deferral would see about a 6% bump in their net income each pay period until the end of the year. That money would need to be repaid by the end of April. That's because it's just a deferral, not a tax cut. The deferral may only be useful for workers who really need the boost now, but think they will be in a better financial place next year. Now, only employees making less than $4,000 a year, a pay period, are eligible. Now, there's also questions about what happens if a worker leaves their job before the end of the year. Do they have to pay the deferral back in a lump sum or essentially have a debt to the employer?
These are the kinds of questions that folks are going to want to have resolved before there's any confidence, especially on the part of employers, to engage in this, especially because the guidance that came out last week seems to focus on the employer's liability in this case.
Now, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said many businesses are likely to choose not to partake, deciding it's not worth the liability issues. Now, that could change if Congress decides to forgive the deferred amount. Now, we got more to get to in our lineup. Affording housing is a struggle for many right now, especially during this pandemic, why one group is turning to hotels to help those without a home. The number of COVID cases is going up sharply among children. Children now account for nearly 10% of all cases. That's according to new numbers from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our Dan Grossman looks at what experts say caused this unexpected spike.
The children are not immune. Children can get this disease. Some children can get very sick from this disease.
American Academy of Pediatrics President Dr. Sally Goza has been a frequent face these past few months as we navigate this pandemic.
I mean, it does look, it's scary looking.
But as one of the leading experts in her field, even she has to take pause when considering recent numbers that show COVID cases in children have more than quadrupled compared to other age groups.
When we first started with this, we were saying that children were about 2% of all the cases. So they're now 9.5%. So we are seeing an increase in the number of children that are cases.
Since May 21st, COVID cases in children have increased more than 700%, while the total number of cases has risen 270%. In the same time frame, child hospitalizations from COVID have nearly tripled that of all COVID patients, and deaths have doubled that of the general population.
Kids are back at playing sports. They're back. Some kids are back in school. So it would make sense that children would be increasing as well.
Dr. Goza says as we resume a more normal lifestyle, a rise in children is expected, but it's the quick increase in proportion that's concerning. She says it comes down to the one thing doctors have been preaching for months now.
The whole thing of we need to decrease the community spread of this disease. That's what this tells me, is that we are not doing a good job of decreasing community spread because it's now spreading to our young children.
Dr. Goza says this is not worthy of panic, but it is a sobering reminder that even those deemed most resilient to this disease are at risk and need to heed precautions just as much as everyone else.
This virus is serious. We're not done with it. We may feel like we're done with it, but this virus is not done with us yet.
I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
Lucas Oil Stadium in the foreground, and in the background you can see the dark clouds producing some rain and some lightning to the north and west of Indianapolis. Temperatures today, they're stuck right around 80 degrees because of the fact we've had that cloud cover. We've not had any big rise in temperatures, all around 80. Lafayette's had the most recent thunderstorm, and you have rain moving back in. Heaviest downpour right now over Delphi. This will continue to move to the east, northeast, southwest of Logansport. You'll see this approach, maybe a quick half-inch of rain, some 40-mile-per-hour gusts with that cell. As we go through the overnight, 11 o'clock tonight, a little more widespread shower and thunderstorm activity. Again, the overall severe threat is low. Here we are at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. South and east of Indy, some showers and thunder showers linger. Temperatures tomorrow, another day where temperatures will struggle to reach the low 80s. Our chance for showers and thunderstorms returns in the afternoon, but just about a 30 to 40% chance. We'll talk about breaking out of a pattern that leaves us with a beautiful weekend coming up.
A COVID-19 vaccine is moving into U.S. trials today. It's made by AstraZeneca and the University of Oxford, and it's the third to make it this far. Data likely won't be available until November.
I was very impressed with the professionalism of the process, and it really made me appreciate just how much care and attention was being paid to the guinea pigs, as it were, of which I was going to be and hoping to be one.
That Royal Air Force veteran was part of the Oxford vaccine trial. He underwent months of hours-long medical exams, and he's still providing blood samples and doesn't know yet if he got the COVID vaccine or the placebo. Now, being in the military, he says that he's pretty much had every vaccine there is, and he's only had a bad reaction to one.
Had a particularly long discussion about the anthrax vaccine that I'd had in the past and reacted badly to, and that required the attention of a senior doctor to come in, and they went through that in every detail.
There's no evidence right now that that this is being shortcut. It's more that the regulatory attention's really been focused on making sure the COVID vaccine is moving forward in a very aggressive timeline. But the clinical trial itself, the size of the clinical trial, how it's being evaluated is the way it would have been 5 years ago, even without a COVID program.
Independent researchers say the vaccines in development appear to be safe in small doses. Phase 2 of the trial included children and elderly. Now, Uber will soon put another safeguard in place to keep everyone safe. The company says it will soon require some riders to take selfies with their masks on. Now, if everything goes well with the ride, the passenger will not have to take a selfie the next time they request a ride. The feature will roll out in the U.S. by the end of the month. Now, as housing costs go up, the U.S. homeless population is getting close to 600,000 people. Alexa Liaco found one city is giving homeless people hotel rooms that come with much more than just a roof over their heads.
Every day by 7:30.
Kimberly Cannell is used to routine. It's a routine she learned out of necessity while sleeping in a homeless shelter each night and spending her days on the streets.
Leave the building at 7:30 in the morning and don't come back till 4. Had a tent on my back. I had 2 dogs.
Addiction kept her from a stable life.
I was drinking. Those days were dark, and that's what it ended up putting me in a full-blown depression. The dogs made me do the right thing. They gave me a point, to live. It was like getting up every day because I have to take care of them.
So she checked into a rehabilitation program.
And I was there for 51 days. But when I got out, there was no place to go.
Terrified of going back to the life she knew, Kim got help from the Columbus House emergency shelter.
And they just treated me like I wasn't, garbage.
But once COVID hit, the shelter became just as threatening as the streets.
So one room would hold like 10 people. It was very a little touchy along the way there in the beginning because you're so scared.
But we quickly realized, despite all the changes we were making inside, we still needed to address the congregate living issue.
The solution, move everyone relying on the shelter into local hotels.
So they're able to build upon their independent living skills while they're here. We're teaching them community.
But not everyone is on board for keeping this new model.
A lot of people do have the not in my neighborhood, or we do have a lot of landlords that don't want to rent to our population. So affordable housing is always a challenge for the individuals that we serve. I would simply say, if not there, then we're.
The struggle for affordable housing impacting more than 500,000 Americans who are homeless.
We have individuals here who used to be professors. You just never know when life will happen and you'll need a little more assistance.
For Kim, having a room she doesn't need to leave every morning is helping her focus on what's next instead of on surviving the day.
I have applied for, it's got to be around 40 to 50 jobs. That's what it means to me. It means, privacy. It's giving me hope in life, that I am going to get this job. I am going to get this apartment, and I am optimistic as all can be.
I'm Alexa Liaco.
Alexa, thank you. Now, finally, in our lineup, there are concerns about cameras when it comes to virtual learning, the risks that you need to watch for with your family, and what could be a better use of this technology. With many students back at school, some are voicing concerns over cameras. Now, as students learn remotely in some capacity, the camera extends the classroom environment outside the school.
It creates the real possibility that anybody accessing the feed can capture a clip, can capture the whole session and use it in a way that isn't in the teacher's or the student's best interest.
Now, Bill Fitzgerald is a privacy researcher with Consumer Reports. He says we're not just talking about the potential for hacking. Someone who is supposed to be in the virtual lesson could use it in a way that's harmful. A struggling student could be made fun of, or one with a disability could be stigmatized. Now, educators could face additional pressures at a time when there's been calls to monitor teaching. Fitzgerald's also worried about students being forced to keep cameras on at all times. That raises a host of concerns, he says, over privacy and privilege.
If people were told that as a prerequisite of their legally required public education, they had to allow people into their home at any point, that wouldn't stand. And requiring a student to put their camera on is somewhat equivalent to allowing somebody into your home.
Fitzgerald says there are still good ways to use the technology in class, like video for sharing large chunks of lessons, while using live cameras more as a way to build relationships. He also suggests that listening to what teachers say they need and providing them additional support whenever possible. The Agriculture Department will extend the flexible free school meals program through the fall. The program gives parents the flexibility to collect free meals at any school, even without their children present. Now, it was supposed to expire at the start of September. The Ag Department has decided to extend the program for as long as it can. Now, there are some new products on the market that aim to let your dog speak your language. Take a look at this preview of an upcoming story.
I'm Amanda Brandeis. Have you ever wanted to know exactly what your dog was thinking? Okay. Tomorrow, how the device works and could it teach your dog how to talk too?
I think I know what my dog's thinking. Wants a treat most of the time. Temperatures in the low 80s tomorrow. Again, a chance for thunderstorms. We'll go on a radar tour of this evening's thunderstorms in seconds. News at 6 starts right now.